tunes.
In this very moment, Joseph fights back tears as he looks at the faces of the men who once sold him into slavery. They are his own brothers, standing before him, pleading for mercy. All the pain of the past rushes back. The moment he was thrown into a pit, the feeling of being shackled and dragged off to a foreign land, the nights spent in a lonely prison cell. Yet here he is, second in command of all Egypt, deciding the fate of the very people who tore his life apart. Will Joseph reveal his true identity? Will he choose vengeance or something far more powerful? How did a once forgotten prisoner end up in the highest seat of authority, confronting his own family in their greatest time of need? To find out how we reach this astonishing moment and what happens next, let us journey back through Joseph's incredible story of betrayal, perseverance, and ultimate destiny. When we last saw Joseph, he was thrown into prison, even though he had done nothing wrong. He had been working in the household of a high-ranking official named Potiphar. Unfortunately, a false accusation led to his imprisonment. But Joseph held on to hope. In that dark, difficult place, he continued to treat others with respect and kindness. Little did he know that his time in prison would place him on a path that would change not just his life, but the lives of many throughout the land. Despite the harsh conditions of prison, Joseph's heart remained hopeful. He did not give up on his dreams or his integrity. He quickly found favor in the sight of the prison guard, who noticed how trustworthy and patient he was. The guard often asked Joseph to oversee small tasks among the other inmates. Joseph took these responsibilities seriously and served wholeheartedly.
Here, rest your head on my blanket. It's not much, but maybe it can help you feel a bit more comfortable.
The other prisoner, an older man with a tired expression, gives Joseph a weak smile and nods in gratitude. Joseph places the blanket gently under the man's head. This simple act of kindness might seem small, but to that weary man, it meant the world. Joseph's compassionate nature stood out in a place where most were too discouraged to care about others. Have you ever found yourself in a place you didn't want to be? Perhaps a difficult school, a challenging job, or a trying family situation, and yet you discovered that even in the darkness, there's a small light shining? That was Joseph's experience. Even here, behind bars, purpose was quietly growing. One day, 2 men were thrown into this very prison. They were no ordinary inmates. One had served as the cupbearer to the king. His royal responsibility was to taste and present the king's wine to ensure it was safe. The other had been the king's baker, preparing fine pastries and bread for the palace. Both these men found themselves here because they had displeased their ruler.
Hello, friends. I see that you're new here. My name is Joseph. If you need anything, let me know.
Thank you. Everything happened so fast. We were working in the palace one day, and the next, we were accused, punished, and sent here.
I can't believe it. Our future looks so
The prison guard calls out for Joseph to help with chores. Joseph felt their pain. He knew what it was like to be in their shoes. So, he offered them a listening ear and a word of comfort. Little did anyone know that their arrival would set into motion events that would reshape Joseph's entire destiny. Another day in the prison. The cupbearer and the baker awaken from troubled sleep. Their faces are marked by worry and fatigue.
I notice you both look upset this morning. What's bothering you? Are you unwell?
We both had strange dreams last night. Dreams that felt important, but we have no way to understand them.
Back in those days, dreams were often seen as messages. Many people believed that dreams offered insight into hidden truths. Joseph, who remained closely connected to a sense of divine guidance, had the ability to interpret dreams. He had already experienced profound dreams in his own youth. Have you ever woken up from a dream that felt so real and wondered if it carried a special meaning? The cupbearer and baker felt that way too.
My friends, interpretations of dreams are a gift. Share your dreams with me and together, let's see what meaning we might find.
Cupbearer, clearing his throat, eyes darting as if trying to recall the details.
In my dream, there was a vine with 3 branches. The branches budded, then blossomed, and suddenly they produced ripe grapes. I was holding the king's cup in my hand, and I took the grapes, pressed them into the cup, and handed it to the king.
Joseph, closing his eyes in quiet reflection.
3 branches. That number must be significant.
Joseph opened his eyes.
Your dream means that in 3 days you will be restored to your position. You will once again place the cup in the king's hand.
Really? So I'll return to the palace?
Yes, and when that happens, please don't forget about me. Mention my name to the king, because I too am innocent and was unjustly put here.
The cupbearer, eyes full of gratitude, grasps Joseph's hands, giving a hopeful nod. The baker steps forward anxiously, a bit hesitant to speak.
In my dream, I was carrying 3 baskets of bread on my head. The top basket was filled with pastries and baked goods for the king. But then birds swooped down and began eating from the basket. I tried to shoo them away, but they wouldn't stop.
Oh, I see. The 3 baskets also represent 3 days. However, your dream indicates a more difficult outcome.
He pauses gently, choosing his words with care.
In 3 days, you will face severe judgment. I am so sorry, and I wish I had better news. This is the meaning I've been given.
The baker's shoulders slump, and he looks devastated. Joseph places a comforting hand on his shoulder. Joseph took no pleasure in sharing this troubling interpretation. Yet, he knew honesty was necessary. We often hope for only good news, but sometimes truth guides us even when it's difficult. 3 days passed, and everything happened exactly as Joseph had foretold. The cupbearer was restored to his royal position, once again serving the king with honor. The baker, unfortunately, faced the harsh penalty. Joseph's interpretations were proven true. Joseph waited eagerly for the cupbearer to remember him, to speak to the king on his behalf. But time dragged on. Days turned into weeks. Weeks became months. The cupbearer forgot about Joseph. Even so, Joseph kept his spirit strong, knew deep inside that every chapter of this story was leading him toward a greater purpose. Time lapse of Joseph's life in prison. He works. He helps others. He prays in a quiet corner. He stares at the barred window, longing to be free. The royal palace exterior, tall columns, intricate carvings, and bright banners. Inside, a magnificent throne room bustling with guards and servants. The king, who is often called Pharaoh in that land, sits on a grand throne, looking deeply troubled. 2 years went by. Joseph, still in prison, might have felt forgotten. But then something extraordinary happened in the palace. Pharaoh, the mighty ruler, began experiencing a series of alarming dreams. These dreams unsettled him so much that he couldn't eat or sleep properly. He summoned his magicians and wise men, but none could offer an explanation. Then, the cupbearer suddenly remembered Joseph. Why now? After all this time, the cupbearer recalled Joseph's gift of interpreting dreams. Isn't it incredible how a memory can suddenly resurface just when it's needed most?
Your Majesty, I recall a young man in prison who interpreted my dream accurately. Perhaps he could help you.
Send for him at once. I must know the meaning behind these nightmares.
Guards rush into the prison area. Joseph, who is going about his daily tasks, is summoned. He was given a clean garments. Imagine Joseph's heart pounding. One moment he's a prisoner. The next he's ushered into the presence of the most powerful ruler in the land. Sometimes life's greatest changes come in an instant, don't they? Joseph stands in front of Pharaoh's throne, bowing respectfully. The cupbearer stands nearby, looking both relieved and apologetic.
I have heard you possess the gift of interpreting dreams. I've had visions that trouble my soul. Can you help me?
Great king, any ability I have comes from a divine source, but I shall gladly interpret your dreams if it is given to me.
Pharaoh described his dreams.
In my first dream, I stood by the Nile River. Out of the water came 7 cows, healthy and plump, grazing on the reeds. Then 7 other cows came up after them, thin and sickly. The thin cows devoured the healthy ones, yet after they ate them, they looked just as starved as before. I awoke, disturbed. In my second dream, I saw 7 heads of grain growing on a single stalk, full and good. Suddenly, 7 more heads sprouted, withered and scorched by the hot wind. The shriveled heads of grain swallowed up the healthy ones. I told my wise men all of this, but they could not explain.
Fat cows grazing, then devoured by thin ones. Lush heads of grain overtaken by shriveled ones.
Your Majesty, the dreams are one and the same in meaning. There will be 7 years of great abundance throughout your land, like the fat cows and the healthy grain. Crops will grow plentifully and food will be abundant. But afterward will come 7 years of famine, like the thin cows and the shriveled grain. The famine will be so severe that it will consume all the abundance. Your dream was repeated twice to show that this event is firmly decided. Now is the time to prepare.
What do you propose? What must we do to protect our people from such devastation?
My king, choose a wise and understanding administrator who can oversee the land. During the 7 plentiful years, collect and store surplus grain in the cities. Then, when the 7 years of famine arrive, you'll have enough to feed the population. In this way, the entire kingdom can survive the crisis.
Pharaoh rises from his throne, clearly impressed. His advisors whisper among themselves, nodding with agreement.
Who could be better than you for this task? You have the spirit of wisdom. From now on, you shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people will follow your orders. Only I, as king, will be greater than you in power.
Can you imagine Joseph's astonishment? One moment, he was a forgotten prisoner. The next, he wore the robes of the highest official in the land, second only to the king. It was a dramatic turning point that showcased how destiny can unfold in the most unexpected ways. Royal servants drape Joseph in fine linen garments. A ceremonial necklace is placed around his neck, and Pharaoh hands him a signet ring, symbolizing authority. A bustling outdoor courtyard. Joseph, now dressed in regal attire, stands beside Pharaoh, who publicly announces Joseph's new position. Crowds watch and cheer. Some look curious, others gaze in awe.
This is our new governor. Treat his word as law, for he acts on my behalf.
Just like that, Joseph stepped into his destiny. Yet, he never let success go to his head. He remembered the days of humble suffering in prison. Those memories would keep his heart compassionate and grounded as he served. Have you ever thought that what you're going through today might be preparing you for a greater role tomorrow? Preparation for famine. Joseph traveling across the kingdom in a royal chariot, inspecting fields of grain. We see storehouses being constructed, sacks of grain piled high, and detailed accounts being kept by scribes. For the next 7 years, the land produced bountiful harvests. Joseph supervised the collection of grain. He built large storehouses in each city, carefully storing the surplus. People marveled at his leadership. The plan seemed to work perfectly.
Ensure every region has enough storehouses. Record the quantities diligently. We must be prepared for the years of shortage.
Officials nod, scribbling notes. Joseph points to various regions on a large map of the kingdom. The farmers happily harvesting, to workers carrying bushels of grain into massive storage barns. Time passes. The lush fields fade to a scorched, dry yellow. Rivers run lower than usual. Worried faces appear in the streets. 7 years of prosperity flew by. Then the famine arrived, just as foretold. Crops withered under scorching sun. Wells dried up. Hunger spread through the cities and villages. People from near and far began to cry out for relief. Thanks to Joseph's foresight, no one in the kingdom starved. The storehouses were well stocked, and distribution was organized. Word spread across neighboring lands that Egypt had food. Strangers journeyed from great distances, hoping to buy grain and survive. Outside the city gates of Egypt, a caravan of weary travelers approaches. They lead donkeys loaded with empty sacks, their clothing dusty from the journey. Among them are Joseph's brothers, though older and with heavier expressions than before. Meanwhile, in a distant land, Joseph's father and brothers also suffered in the famine. Hearing that Egypt had an abundance of grain, Joseph's father sent his sons, except the youngest Benjamin, to buy food. They had no idea the powerful governor they would meet was none other than the brother they once sold into slavery. The brothers passed through the bustling Egyptian marketplace, heading toward the administrative complex. Guards direct them to a large hall where Joseph sits on a throne-like chair, managing food sales and allocations.
My brothers, after all these years.
They did not recognize him in his Egyptian attire, speaking the local language. He looked regal and confident, not at all like the teenager they had abandoned. Joseph felt a rush of emotions: joy, sorrow, perhaps even a hint of anger. But he kept his identity hidden, at least for a time. The brothers bow before Joseph's seat of authority, just as a line of other foreign visitors do. Joseph's eyes brim with tears he struggles to hold back, but he quickly composes himself.
Where do you come from? What is your purpose here?
We have traveled from a far land, sir. We need grain. Our families are starving. We have money to buy what we need.
I suspect you might be spies. You have come to see the vulnerabilities of our land.
No, my lord, we are honest men. We are all sons of one father. We had another brother long ago, but he is no more.
Joseph tested them, not out of cruelty, but to see if their hearts had changed since the day they sold him. He wanted to know if they were still the same jealous brothers, or if they had grown kinder over time. Joseph rises from his chair, looks at them critically.
To prove your honesty, you will leave one of your brothers here. Return with your youngest brother. Only then will I believe your story.
The brothers murmur among themselves in their own language, not realizing Joseph understands every word.
This is punishment for what we did to Joseph. Perhaps the guilt of that act now haunts us.
Joseph's heart ached to hear them express regret, but he continued the test. They chose Simeon to stay behind. Joseph provided them grain for their families and secretly returned their silver payment into their sacks, adding another layer to his test. The brothers depart, troubled and confused. Simeon is kept under guard, though Joseph instructs the guards to treat him kindly. The brothers arrive at their father's tented settlement, trembling as they recount the event. Their father, visibly grief-stricken, listens in shock. When they opened their grain sacks and found their money still inside, fear gripped them. It looked as though they had stolen the grain. How would they ever prove their innocence? Their father, already mourning the loss of Joseph from years ago, refused to send Benjamin, the youngest, back with them.
First, I lost Joseph. Now Simeon is captive. I cannot bear to lose Benjamin too.
But as the famine persisted and their food began to run out, they had no choice. Judah made a solemn promise. He would protect Benjamin or bear the blame forever. The brothers set out again on their journey to Egypt, this time bringing Benjamin, a young man with gentle eyes and a cautious demeanor. They carried double the money to repay what was returned to them and gifts of rare goods from their homeland. Still, their hearts pounded with worry, unsure what awaited them in Egypt, arrival in Joseph's presence once more. Joseph sees Benjamin with them, and emotion floods his face. He discreetly signals an attendant to release Simeon, who reunites with his brothers.
Welcome back. How is your father? Is he well?
Joseph's eyes flick to Benjamin. He struggles to maintain composure. Joseph invites the brothers to dine at his house. They are astonished at such honor. During the meal, Joseph seats them in the exact order of their birth, startling them further. Benjamin receives a portion of food 5 times larger than anyone else's.
How does he know our ages so precisely?
Everything Joseph did was deliberate, another way to see if jealousy still lurked among his brothers' hearts. Yet they dined together peacefully. No one complained about Benjamin's extra favor. As the brothers prepare to leave the next morning, Joseph quietly instructs his steward to place a precious silver cup in Benjamin's sack, setting up the final test. They had just begun their journey home when soldiers raced after them, accusing them of theft. The brothers, confident of their innocence, allowed their sacks to be searched. The steward opens Benjamin's sack and reveals the silver cup. The brothers gasp in horror.
We have done no such thing. There must be some mistake.
The group is marched back to Joseph's palace in dread. Back in Joseph's presence, the brothers bow and plead. Benjamin stands trembling, fear in his eyes.
The one who stole my cup shall remain here as my servant. The rest of you may return to your father.
This was the moment of truth. Would the brothers abandon Benjamin as they had once abandoned Joseph?
Please, my lord, do not punish the boy. Take me instead. If he does not return, our father's sorrow will destroy him. I made a promise to protect Benjamin, and I will not fail him.
This was the moment of truth. Would the brothers abandon Benjamin as they had once abandoned Joseph? Joseph sends away the attendants so he can speak to his brothers privately. He breaks down, sobbing openly, staggering forward as he calls out to them.
I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold so long ago. Do not be distressed or angry with yourselves. What you meant for harm, a higher plan, turned for good. I was sent here to preserve life, to save many from famine. Now rise and embrace me as your brother.
The brothers stare in shock, some stepping backward, others dropping to their knees. Eventually they run to Joseph, tears and hugs all around. It's a profound moment of reconciliation. They wept together, overwhelmed by forgiveness and relief. The brothers realized the extraordinary journey Joseph had taken, from the pit they'd thrown him into, to slave, to prisoner, and now to governor of the greatest nation around. Is there someone in your life who needs forgiveness? Or someone you need forgiveness from? Moments like these show us how healing a single choice can be. Word of this emotional reunion reaches Pharaoh, who invites Joseph's entire family to move to Egypt. Jacob, the father, traveling with a large caravan of possessions and livestock, heading into Egypt. Joseph rides out in a chariot to meet him. At long last, Joseph is reunited with his beloved father. The years of mourning are wiped away in a single embrace. Joseph leaps from his chariot, running to embrace an older man who falls weeping onto Joseph's shoulder. The rest of the family gathers around, tears of joy and laughter filling the air.
Joseph, my son, I thought I would never see you again.
Now we can be together, and you shall live in the best part of the land.
Evening sky. Joseph stands at the edge of a field, gazing thoughtfully at the setting sun. In a beautiful twist, the once broken family was made whole. The famine still raged, but Joseph's plan saved countless lives. People from all over came to buy grain, keeping everyone fed through those difficult years. Meanwhile, Joseph's father lived to see the blessings of this unexpected turn of events. We learn about the power of forgiveness. Joseph chose not to hold on to bitterness, but to welcome his brothers with open arms. We see that vision and integrity guide us through dark times, and we discover that out of great tests can come great triumphs. Could there be a treasure hidden in your challenges right now? Is there someone you need to forgive? Perhaps even yourself? May we all find the courage to dream boldly, to act with integrity, and to forgive wholeheartedly. After all, you never know how your toughest moments today might lead to your greatest breakthroughs tomorrow. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Joseph's life in Egypt, his rise to power, and his beautiful reunion with his family. May his example continue to inspire and uplift us all. Thank you for joining us on this journey through God's Word. We hope today's animated Bible story touched your heart and strengthened your faith. If you found it meaningful, please like and share to spread God's message far and wide. Be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. God bless you, and see you next time.